All right. Good morning. The Building and Facilities Construction Committee meeting of Wednesday, October 16th, 2024, will now begin at 10:00 what? I can't see. 10:03. Thank you, Ray. Before we begin, I'd like to have you all go around and identify yourselves for the recorder to make it easier for minutes and comments.
Linda Brown.
Ray Klotz.
Carol Gogolinski.
Fred Fontaine.
Bob Werby.
Matthew Benoit.
And Shirley Masinski, Chair. We might skip around here a little bit because I'm sure Matt Benoit would appreciate not having to answer to all these things. I know you have some on your plate, but the first thing on the agenda, we should take a look at the meeting schedule, and if you have any comments or reasons you don't think it's a good date, speak up.
Or we could do it next meeting.
I have just one question. Is January 15th MLK Day?
I'm not sure.
Oh, no, we're on a Wednesday, so it won't be.
No.
Okay. Answered my own question.
All right. And
The 19th during school, not that it matters, but February 19th is school vacation week, so I'm not sure if you guys still want to meet during school vacation week. I know I won't be here, but
could you meet on Zoom or?
I'd have to wait to see.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but
Sure. And another thing, we can always change, as long as I have enough time to.
If we don't have a quorum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we can vote on this next meeting.
No, let's get it over with.
All right. I don't have an issue.
I'm
Anybody?
fine with it. Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Linda Brown, seconded by Carol Gogolinski to approve the meeting schedule as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, everybody. And again, if we need to, if something comes up, we can always make changes. I'm going to skip over the highway building project till Matt Wojcik comes back. Matt Benoit, any particular items you are going to be able to give us information on?
Give you an update on Green Communities.
Good?
I submitted the application for the middle school LED project yesterday.
Okay. Oh, good.
We have a request for funding at town meeting for a partial match of the grant. It's for $28,000 at town meeting. Project overall costs $127,000 after utility incentives. So we're looking to match it, get $100K from Green Communities to cover that. Utility incentive is like $46,000. So that's pretty good.
Okay.
So that was just submitted. We have two items, LED projects on the warrant for capital. These are the LEDs for Town Hall and the police station and the post office.
Okay.
That's really all we have for the Green Community stuff.
Okay. Any questions,
It's
anyone?
kind of warrant pending right now.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions or comments on the green communities? Okay, just keep us posted when you hear anything definite from the approval. Any other item?
We could do stormwater management if you want.
Okay, and I think there was a question at our last meeting whether it needs to be still on here because it now has a committee of its own, so, but go ahead.
Entirely up to you.
Well, we'll check with Matt Wojcik too when he comes back.
The committee met yesterday.
First time?
No, they've been meeting.
Okay,
probably
I
met
thought
3
so.
or 4 times.
Yeah, okay.
We're really chipping away at it. We're looking at model bylaws from other communities and trying to implement items from those, try to make it more uniform.
Okay.
I've got some edits to make today to pitch to them at their next meeting, which is 28th, whatever the Monday is. Yep. But yeah, they're really doing a good job with it, and a lot of different opinions from all different types of folks contributing to this is really helpful. I think it'll make for a good stormwater bylaw come spring.
Good. So we'll just check and see if it needs, in anybody else's opinion, if you have a thought or a comment on that, whether
I
you,
have a question. So that will be on the spring
Yes.
town warrant?
Yeah,
Okay.
you received an administrative order from the federal government saying that we need to do this like immediately.
that's not a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not a surprise.
We're not the only community.
I'm sure.
That got one of those recently, but the penalties could be
Yeah.
really bad. It's either fines or we're no longer allowed to discharge any stormwater into the Mumford. We'd have to replace all our infrastructure and somehow treat our water. That'd be nightmarish, but we're not sure what could happen if we don't get this going.
Anybody? Okay, we can come back to that. Anything else?
I could talk about the grammar school
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
vacant building, because that's on for the warrant also. We had a survey to carve off a piece of the backland from the school department to transfer to the select board.
Yeah.
This makes the building more conforming with setback on the back, and it grabs that parking lot as part of the parcel. And also within that same article allows the select board to dispose of the property.
Okay.
Yeah, and it also eliminates any restrictions that were previously put on the use of that property, so the selectmen could dispose of it for any use that's allowed in the area.
So do you have a copy of the plot plan now?
No.
Not yet?
No, the survey was just started. I should have something maybe next week, but it's not going to be part of the warrant. It's just an aerial with a sketch to show the area. It's like 0.29 acres transfer.
.29?
Yep.
It's about a quarter of an acre then.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's only the piece that's been transferred.
Yes.
So the whole plot,
Yeah, it's just that piece that's getting combined with the grammar school parcel.
so do you remember what the size of the grammar school parcel is?
I do not.
Okay, sorry.
Can't be an acre or more.
No, it's pretty small. When you say it's getting it to be, make it conforming, what's the actual requirement? It's like a half acre, right? 20?
It's the side yard setback right now.
Oh, it's setback, that's the
Yeah.
problem, so, okay.
Yeah, that's why we're trying to eliminate that nonconformity. by
Right.
adding the line.
And
And what's the current setback?
It's right in the line.
So 2 feet, something
Yeah.
like that?
It's-
okay.
It's probably less.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, may I
Yeah.
bring up something? I think this has gone before town meeting a few times, it's been knocked down, and I think the fear is the kids walking to school. I wonder if there's any way we can have somebody just go over there and count how many kids actually walk to school? Because I'm going to bet you there's very, very few that ever walk by there, and I think people's fears are unfounded.
Well,
Go ahead.
you know that it's going to be going back to the selectmen with none of those encumbrances, right? That were voted on
Right.
before. Those are going to be wiped out,
Right.
so they can sell it to anyone.
But
Right.
I hear what you're saying.
what I'm saying is, we really need to see, because this was the fear, the kids are going to be walking by there, and people are going to be, coming in and out with cars, and, I don't see kids walking, but maybe I don't go there when school gets in or school gets out, but all I see is a bunch of cars going by, people bringing their kids, so, and I can understand, that was my concern. You want to protect our children, number one, but if they're not walking there, then maybe we don't have to worry. And we should bring that up at town meeting, because that would
No.
help them.
Maybe it should be, try to be settled before town meeting.
Right, exactly.
Settling, I just settled something. Do I need to settle something else?
Maybe we need to tell Matt what we just
No,
said.
so, Matt, we have covered a few things while waiting for you to return. Matt Benoit has gone over the green communities, and we did talk about stormwater management in the meetings they've had, and I think one of the questions was, well, my question was, do we still need to keep this on our agenda where it has a committee of its own?
No, you can take it off. I mean, it kind of distracts from what we do here.
I mean, if the board or members majority want to keep it on, that's fine. I'm just asking in general.
And we need to make a motion to remove it? Is that the process?
You can?
I make a motion to remove the stormwater management, letter F, from our agenda.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Motion made by Linda Brown, seconded by Fred,
Yeah.
to remove the stormwater management from our agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
I would like to abstain because I'm on that committee and I
Sure.
don't want to look like I'm,
So Carol abstains.
The motivation of putting it on this agenda was to have a forum to talk about the issue. Now that the stakeholder committee is meeting and their meetings are televised,
Yep,
we're all
Thank you.
set, like you say.
thank you. And then there's the vacant buildings, and Matt brought up about the old elementary school and having it surveyed.
Grammar school.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Elementary, grammar school, whatever, the old school. So he's been giving us some input, and that, if you want to continue on that.
No, we're trying to bring it to a point where it's basically a complying lot and get an A&R to finish off the planning board's role in merging all of that territory into a saleable condition. So, as I said last night, the select board meeting, this warrant article, the verbiage is very dense, and every phrase means something. Rather than have 3 articles, we put 3 concepts into 1 paragraph.
Okay.
So town meeting's vote will be, what we're asking town meeting to vote, let me put it that way. The vote will be on whether or not to transfer the control of that surveyed piece to the select board. And then, once the select board interacts with the planning board and the lots are joined, and there is 1 lot, that the select board will be authorized to dispose of it without reference to any prior town meeting votes on the topic, which are many years old now. So what that means is it will be, all the interest has been in converting that building to a residential use, and that's what I expect the contractors who have expressed an interest to use it for. Is that what I wish? No. I'll be honest with you. I think this community is underserved with even basic walk-in clinic-style medical offices or dentistry. But that's a specialized construction, and this is an old building, so I'm not so sure we're going to be in a position to run red wire and all the other things that a hospital or a medical setting requires if they're going to do anything other than basic exams. So I know the 2 contractors that have met with me and gone over this in some detail were both thinking of converting it to condos, probably age-restricted condominium style or apartment style building, which meant that they needed that backyard for some parking spaces, and not for nothing, but that back door to the building is the most likely ADA acceptable
Oh, wow.
entrance and access to the building. So in the front, as you walk through the door, you're immediately greeted with a stairway. So it's going to be a pretty expensive rehab, and I just want to get moving with it. Now that I have interest from people who have the resources to do this kind of project, I just want to get going without waiting for credits to mature and all the typical school building rehab projects take years because they're waiting for low-income housing tax credits and sometimes historic preservation credits. And we just need to go with somebody who has their own bank, can just do this stuff. That's where we are with it. So I anticipate in a year's time, we'll be talking about the project going on and not about the sale.
Okay, so the article on the town warrant will be mainly the plot
It's all three things.
Yeah.
It's transferring it from the school
to the...
back to the town,
Yep,
authorizing the select board to dispose, that's point number 2. And point number 3 is to just wipe the slate clean and say any other restrictions that were placed on the sale of this building have been removed.
May I just tell him what he didn't hear?
yep, hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Fred.
Will there be restrictions as to how much they can change the general character of the building?
Yeah, so I think when, we're going to make that a condition of the RFP under the Chapter 30B, Section 16 process. We're basically going to say the exterior of the building needs to remain intact. It's a very beautiful historic building. It kind of fits in that spot where it's at, and we don't really want to change any of that at all.
Good.
If there are cosmetic changes, they would be in the rear to make it the ADA accessibility, appropriate. But
Makes sense.
Carol?
One of the things that I said earlier was, when this was last on the warrant, the fear people had was the kids are going to be walking to school and there's going to be this traffic, but I don't think many kids walk by there. In fact, I haven't seen any. But I was wondering if we could, perhaps the police could go over every now and then during school hours and see how many kids walk by, and then when it does come...
Sidewalks on the opposite side, though, isn't
Right.
it?
But but I'm telling you, there's no
Yeah.
kids even on any side, there's no sidewalks as far as I know.
sidewalks.
But if, so they could get up in front of a town meeting and, somebody who knows something is saying, there aren't any kids walking there. So don't be afraid of that part, that's all.
Back in the day, Carol,
Yeah,
when it would snow,
yeah.
you guys in Douglas would walk barefoot.
Yeah, both ways.
In the snow, both ways.
Right.
The kids nowadays don't do
Right,
that.
but they don't, so,
I don't sit there every day.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't, right? I have never seen a school-age child walk down Gleason Court.
right,
I haven't. It is first of all, it's dangerous.
right.
People whip in and out of the
Exactly.
post office,
Yep.
and, there are some hooligans that go to the senior center, too. Now that it's all newly paved,
Right.
it's a little bit less of a risk to your car to go a little bit quicker unless you don't pay attention to the speed bump. I have never seen it.
Oh, I
And
agree.
I know that Chief Foley used to be out there waving
Yeah.
kids in, but that just doesn't happen anymore.
I know. That's why I think if we can have someone actually stand up at the town meeting and say, I was there on 5 dates, and there were no,
We have
school
two
was going in and
SROs now,
school was
so
going out.
We'll ask the police in
Yeah,
particular.
if they could do that, and then we got a
think
trusted
that-
person giving them the opinion.
The flack that I used to hear was because of who was possibly going to be occupying the building, the people against having it put into a housing or
Right.
whatever, because it was near the school, and they did not want those type of people
Yeah.
near the school was the big issue.
So anybody can move into any neighborhood
Right?
unless a court has found them guilty. And they have to register. They may not be within a certain amount of space from the doorway of a school,
Yeah,
which pretty much rules out this building.
yeah.
But they could live in the neighborhood next door. That's
Yeah.
beyond.
No, I hear you.
So I
But you,
may have been a wee bit of a pinkish orange herring.
so you'd already said all the restrictions had been,
No, it's in the
It's
article.
in the
so that's what
article.
you'll be asked to vote.
Sure.
Yeah.
all right, any other questions?
I agree with you, Carol, and I was thinking about it. It would be good, I don't think it's an issue with somebody at town meeting, might even be nice to have the data. Oh, when it's brought up, this is what we know. So it would be good to have it actually
Yeah.
analyzed.
We move so many cars over Gleason Court every day. As a parent, I would be petrified if my kids were going to walk up that road. There is no sidewalk, and I don't anticipate there being one. So we encourage parents to do drop-off.
So if we could, for the next meeting, have just a plot plan once the survey is done so that we're aware of the size.
It's going to be in the warrant.
Okay.
It'll be
Yep.
displayed in the warrant, and we typically, if we're going to vote on any sort of land issue, we have the drawings at the town clerk's office for anybody to view in a bigger size, if they want to see it.
Okay.
Bigger size.
All right.
14 days before town meeting.
Yep. Any other comments, questions?
Survey should be done next week.
Yeah,
We should get the plans, but still waiting here for that.
okay. Very good. Anything else? If not, any restrictions or comments that you're looking at before we just let everything, and not our recommendation, or?
On just the grammar school?
Yeah. My only thought was, I don't want to see it torn down, but,
I'll
That would be a
second
big hell no.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, have we done this with a building yet in this town? No. We only did this type of RFP process for raw land. But the select board can restrict any number of things when it solicits bids for the property. So, we restricted one of the sales specifically. The buyer had to do an economic development project within a year after purchasing it, or there were clawback provisions. That's the kind of thing we'll put in there, and I think that'll include maintaining the architectural integrity of the building and consulting with people before they come.
you're set, happy, or okay with that? Yeah. All right, we'll keep it on until, and hopefully that will move along and be an asset to the community. All right, we'll go back up to the top. We did our schedule vote, and we're looking for input on the highway building project, so we waited for you.
As you know, the property purchase is on the town meeting warrant for November in two separate articles. We wanted to keep the legal arrangement of the sale in one article and the actual authorization of the funds in a separate article, and give people a chance to divide their vote if they choose to. The seller is a willing seller. We have negotiated a price and other terms of the transfer of this property, and the seller has no objection to the town using the eminent domain process. And she will submit that to town meeting in writing, and I'm asking that not only that she submit that in writing, but that she have a representative or personally attend, she is a resident, to stand up at town meeting and agree that she's satisfied with the price. But using eminent domain allows us to clear title from any potential cloud, from any party, from any part of the universe. All of these older properties in Douglas have these ancient deeds that go back, because this property hasn't changed hands very many times at all. So you go back into the deed history and you'll see that from where I saw the pheasant last year and I almost shot it, is, the corner bound. And, it just gets confusing with heirs and a lot of things that used to be done in land ownership that really aren't done anymore, with remainder interests and a whole bunch. We just want to extinguish all of that, and so the town will have clear title forever, and that's the idea. As I've said before, we would recommend the purchase of this property for town purposes regardless of what goes there, because it is of its location and its size, it would be appropriate for almost any use other than public safety because it's too far off the road. But the highway barn, I think we finally made headway with Weston and Sampson and fully explained what we're asking them to do. And I consider it a worthy of making it a matter of public record that what we're looking for them to do is specify as a qualified designer and stamp plans that are for a building that's, I want to call it a prefabricated building because it makes it sound cheap, but a building that can be assembled from parts that are pre-constructed. It's not modular in the sense that it has all the utilities. It doesn't. But this is how the industry works, right? You can get, packaged steel is right up here in Sutton, and you can buy yourself a barn or whatever, and it comes, and the labor comes separately to assemble the thing. That's how we want to build this building, because they are far, 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 I'm using the word 3 times, for mathematical purposes, cheaper or less expensive than traditional design build, and then go out and, start assembling this thing from raw materials that you buy elsewhere, and cutting it and doing all of this stuff in the field to make it all fit together, almost like you were stick building a house. That's not what we want to do, because that's millions and millions of dollars, and it's a lot of labor, and we don't need to do that, and nor do we need to pay anyone an exorbitant markup on a prepackaged kit, because you can go online. Any person who wants to build, say you want to build a 2040 pole barn, go online and look at the costs. There's no mystery here to what these things would cost. And if you took the price of the kit and double it, that's your labor. So that's where we wanted them to. They finally, I think, we finally hit pay dirt with them. They finally kind of got what we're asking them to do. And we said, you know what, the trick here, what we've learned from all the projects we've done already in Douglas, isn't that the designer is always going to hit a home run because nobody gets 100. There's always changes to a plan that never works out exactly the way you thought it was going to work when you were sitting at your desk in a warm environment in the winter, and then you go out in the field in the spring, you start digging, and it's like, oh my God, look at the size of that rock. I mean, there's just all kinds of things can happen. So where we want to put our eggs in this basket is with the construction supervision and pay for that piece, rather than having them think their payday or where they're going to collect their fees is on the design side. To me, it does, if we pay Weston & Sampson a little bit more than we thought we would for construction supervision, but they are clerk of the works, they're Johnny on the spot, they're right there, they're watching the whole thing go up, they have a qualified, licensed construction supervisor who's there. I'll pay for that time rather than have them mess around with a slide ruler on a draftsman table and trying to come up with, really unique dimensions to a building. We can't afford that. What difference does it make? If it's 20 or 40, it would be 21 by 41. Well, let's be serious. So I think that's where we're at. That's a very good place to be. For folks to understand, I think the other part of this is a conversation about running water, town water, up to this facility for a couple of reasons. Not necessarily sure we wouldn't use the well at all, but I want to be in a position where we don't have to if we choose not to. I think it's a more reliable.
Existing well that's on the property?
Yeah, there's an existing well for a house. I think for fire suppression purposes, I would just prefer to have town water, and we can figure out how to loop it there and have a little bit extra sitting in the pipe. Because it is in the plan to sprinkler the fire station eventually, and this building will be big enough where it needs to be sprinklered, so it's just bite the bullet and make sure that that infrastructure is put in place. That will add to the cost of any bond we do.
Yeah.
So it's not, but we needed to save on the building and hold firm on our approach to the building, so we would open up more room in what our target borrowing is for the water piece to be paid for out of the same debt issue. I hope that makes sense to everyone.
So the town water presently goes up to the town common and I think beyond,
It goes beyond that.
yeah. So this would be a side loop, fire station, highway site.
What do you mean side loop? I mean, it's just a
Yeah.
connection.
It'd be a
Well,
connection. We'll-
yeah, but
Oh,
it's,
okay.
We'll boost it, we'll do what we need to do.
Yeah.
but
yeah.
We have pretty good pressure up to the common. It's after the common where things get really sketchy.
I have a
When you
Carol?
bring the water, are you going to bring it up Rydell Road? That way there, other people on Rydell Road could eventually hook into it?
That would be my proposal, because there are commercial properties there that would benefit.
Right, instead of just running it down through our property. Okay, that sounds good.
Anybody?
I have a question.
Yes, Linda?
Going back to the land, which also might affect the building, there is a large pond associated. Is there a dam there?
Yes, so as a condition of the sale, the owner is going to do the dam inspection report, which is
So-
good for 10 years.
The dam is on the property that we're looking at? Okay. And what if it, I know I hate to be a pessimist, but what if it fails?
If it were to fail, then we wouldn't be able to buy this property. I'm not taking on the responsibility of a lousy dam. We've already sent the engineers out there once to eyeball it.
Okay.
There's no obvious sign of deterioration, but it has been kept up. So there is a valid dam inspection report in place for it now, but it's coming to the end, it's done every 10 years. I think it's year 8 or 8.5 on this one, so Ms. Olson's going to have that done for us, and then we'll have
Before town
another 10
meeting?
years. Before we close,
Okay,
yeah, but I just,
all right.
let's be honest, you don't want to buy a bad dam, so we won't.
How far away would the building be? Well, I mean, we don't even have a spot for the building yet, right?
You know, I'm planning a nice little, I want to get some lunch and go up there and just walk around. I know Selectman Fitzpatrick's been up there a few times, I know Weston and Sampson's been up there a few times, and our environmental consultant's been up there. The dam's pretty far away from, so you're coming up that easement, that driveway, and as you come into that property, you're coming in on one edge of it. All the rest of it's to the north and west of the driveway,
Okay,
but you're passing over the brook that comes out of the pond, and that's where the dam is.
so,
So
but-
it's the access point. The dam is more or less near the access point.
so the highway bond would
Be
be
in the back of that.
higher up.
Oh, yeah.
If the dam were to breach, it's not going to wipe us out. Wipe the highway bond out and all the equipment in it.
And we build an arc in that case,
Oh,
too.
well, I'm just thinking of my tax dollars.
I know you are.
Okay.
Anyone? Carol?
Is the brook a perennial stream?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Okay, so we've got that 200-foot
Isn't that Rydell?
thing that we have to deal with.
So there's an existing crossing,
Right.
so I think we're in a better position talking about improving the existing crossing than we would be if we were doing it in the first instance. That is because there's a dam there, that is an artificial body of water. I know it doesn't count for some people.
It
but-
doesn't count for the pond,
For
but
the
instead
pond.
the brook is still on the
Oh,
200.
that's Riddlebrook, that's,
Yeah, okay.
That goes-
So that means basically that land is not of any use. We can't build on it or anything within that 200 feet.
yeah, the Riddlebrook, like I said, the crossing is
Right.
at the access point.
Right.
The land.
Well,
is
I'm just
higher.
thinking about the rest of the land.
Yeah, now the rest of the land is.
How many acres in all is it?
14.
14. So you probably, how long is the brook, do you know? Because basically what I'm saying is.
I'm going to
how
give
many-
you a
how
prize
many-
for asking the most difficult question.
Well, that's because I spent
I don't know
my
how
life-
long
I
Riddlebrook
spent my
is.
life in this business, and I've purchased and sold land many, many times, and I've built garages, even like what you're looking at, and so I'm asking difficult questions because I know What
no,
I
it's
would be
just-
looking at if I was going
I
to
don't
buy
know
a
how
piece
long
of
the-
property and I was going to build one of these buildings, that's all.
Yeah.
So,
So that's why I
It's not going
asked
to
you for
interfere
good
with
questions.
what we're doing because it's at the access point. All the land is high and dry behind it.
Right, but basically you want to know how many good pieces, acres of land you're actually buying. Okay, that's all. I want to know how many acres of good land we're buying, because the 200 feet on both sides of that river basically belong to conservation. So how many buildable, usable acres are we buying? That's all I want to know. I think,
12?
if I was buying it, that's what I'd
Yeah.
want to know,
absolutely.
you know? And then I have another, I don't,
So there's a, I'll show it to you. There's a
Yep.
conceptual drawing where Weston and Sampson identified the building envelope, the buildable envelope
right,
on that. It's close to
Okay.
12 acres, yeah.
okay.
Is that something you could email?
Yeah, I have to find it, but I know, I've seen it, so I think I know where to look.
No, I mean, because we do need to be aware, if we're going to make any kind of a recommendation here,
So
the
again,
selectmen.
but the other piece of this, folks, is there's an appraisal.
Gotcha.
Right, so it was a professional commercial appraisal, so he appraised it at its value for this buildable space. So,
Okay. May I ask some more
Yes.
questions?
I have
Okay.
one myself.
not about the height of the trees, because I won't know the height of the trees.
You use a yardstick, but anyway, the other question I have is, as far as this is town barn for equipment, now we're going to need some office space. Are you going to try not to have it within that barn that we're putting up?
So, the conceptual drawing that you will see, because
Yeah.
I've asked them to have it ready for town
Right.
meeting, even though we're not looking for the
Right.
funding for it. If you can imagine all the cold storage in a standard size garage,
Right,
and then the front piece would have walls, would have separations, and there would be office space there. We're not going to put that in the mezzanine inside the bays. It'll be in front of. So it'd still be part of packaged construction,
all right,
but it would be separate from.
but that would be done on site. Basically, they come in with the building, and then any of this build-out, any of this interior office build-out inside that building is done on site.
It will be done on site.
And frankly, you're getting into a lot of money on that, and the way you can get around that is, and I know a modular might sound like a dirty word, it's not a dirty word. They're good built. Get a modular, okay? Basically, that's what Pine's got. And Pine's got a lot more employees than the town of Douglas, okay? They actually took the house that I used as a model home when I was building houses, moved it and put it on a foundation, and it is their office space. The thing is, when you buy a modular, what drives the price of these things up 3 times is prevailing wage. When you buy a modular, 75 to 80% of that thing is totally done, and you do not pay the prevailing wage until it hits the foundation. Okay, we'll have to pay prevailing wage to put the foundation in. We'll have to put prevailing wage to, set it and stuff like that. But 75% of that is going to be outside of prevailing wage. And that is probably the least expensive way you could do this. I wouldn't put that office inside those buildings at all.
They won't be.
But I wouldn't even build it on site. I'm telling you, I would build in a modular and probably save ourselves hundreds and hundreds of thousands of
So when
dollars.
we get to that point,
Yeah.
we'll be talking about that.
Well, the thing
We're just
is,
a little ahead of ourselves at this point, but I'm just trying to get them to get the approach correct, so that they'll be open-minded about doing these kinds of things.
and then
So
another thing I'd like to say about those metal buildings, et cetera, is, again, I've had a lot of experiences with them, and they're very good, they're fantastic. In fact, if you look at Pine's building, that building, the middle part of that building was moved into that spot because we originally had that garage, it was in the middle of the highway right-of-way. So when the highway came, we literally had that thing, picked it up, brought it back over there. It was tricky because there's no floor on it, so we had to do a lot of welding it together to make sure they didn't move. And it's still been sitting there, and that's like 30 years later after it's been moved. And so I'm a big proponent on those type of buildings, because they're easy to heat, they're just really good buildings.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Linda.
There is an existing house currently, and will be usable? So that could be used for
It's
office
not gonna be-
space?
Big enough exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm weird about this, but I think it's bad karma to tear down a good house. So Mr. Tassino, a few years back, had refurbished this house completely. It's a
wow.
rental. So it's in really good shape. So there is like a rundown old trailer up on one lot. We're going to go look at it and see, we can take that thing out. So you just have the house in the back. You know, what I envision that being used for is break room space, right? It has a kitchen, it's a house, right? So you can, if we have a snowstorm where people are working all night and they're going to grab a couple of Zs, they would be there instead of in the office space. And be very, very
So that could,
conservative in sizing the office space so that it's only office space. We're not building out a kitchen and all that other stuff, and that's my thought process on it. You
So
know,
it's
so
salvageable.
we adjusted the appraisal for that reason. So the appraisal was 700,000, which is just about 50,000 an acre. But we added 175 for the house and for the dam inspection and some of the other things.
okay.
Question, and you may have answered this already, but regarding water, who is controlling the water that's up there,
You mean the pond?
the pond?
Oh,
Who owns the pond?
Chinsboro's mostly.
Yeah.
so you mean the dam flow?
No, this,
So-
the pond is split between a property that's held by the Chesbros and this property.
Ah,
Okay.
This property,
That's
the
what
boundary
I-
line does go a little bit into the water. So Carol's observation, it's not a pure 14 acres, it's more than 12, but there's been some discussion of whether or not there were water rights in the pond held by the Chesbros as part of a farming operation. We haven't been able to find any evidence of that. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means we haven't found it yet. So we're looking through the old deeds and everything else. Now, he does have access to his property from the easements, so it's hearsay to me. I haven't spoken directly to Mr. Chesbro or even Ellie about it. But what I've heard other people say is that he doesn't feel passionately about the easement from Maine all the way back. As long as he has access from Rydell, he would be able to access for cutting timber or whatever he wants to do on his property. He'd still have that.
so there are a couple ways in
Yeah.
for me.
But that would be cleared up before,
It has to be.
yeah, okay.
So you're saying then that this does not legally extinguish right-of-ways?
I had hoped that it would be.
Yeah.
So we will take a different approach with each landowner that might benefit from the easement,
Yeah,
because they have different options. I think that both the Tebow property and the Chesbro property benefit from both easements, one
Right.
to Rydell, one to me. If we have to compensate them for extinguishing the easement, it might be worthwhile. But it is not a condition that is precedent or necessary to building a highway barn or buying the property. Because it's a right to pass and repass.
right, but you can't build on top of it.
Can't build on it, we
So if
wouldn't
we wanted to
anyway.
make something really big going all the way over, would be a problem with that easement.
So we're not there yet.
You should probably talk with Evan and his wife, because they're pretty easy folks to talk to.
That's up to the selectmen. We're only advisors.
Right, well, that's what I'm advising them of that.
I'm sure that, yeah. All right, any other questions,
So the
comments?
purchase price is $875?
I have in the past given a fairly convoluted explanation of how I thought we would fund that, which Jean has completely deflated. She's
That's
like,
her job.
It may be, you're right, but that's not how it's going to look. It will look like a transfer from free cash, because the way those resources I identified in the past come into the control of the town to be spent for this purpose, they would have to first go to free cash. So the funding source at town meeting will be to transfer from free cash the sum of $875.
Any other questions? Thank you for good explanations, Matt. All right, if no other questions, we'll move on. And status of oil spill is still the same.
We're talking about building a vent, small dollars.
Okay. And we've covered the green communities with Matt Benoit. The main roof replacement is going well. I
We're almost
take it?
done. We're going to be working here on the gutter. A little bit of a change order there for some of the flashing. You drive by, you look at the building, it's a brick building with a roof on it, right? Yeah. When you climb up there, you've got all kinds of historic metalwork that was done along the edges to bring the water over the edge of the building. A lot of it was copper. So matching materials and making sure that you are not allowing water to penetrate along the edges is key. So I'm going to do a little extra flashing here around the gutter line. And we have, the one remaining task is to replumb the heating and air conditioning units on the roof. Those are propane units. And the plumber who installed the line the first time took it upon himself to completely ignore the drawings and use a fastening system that is not acceptable. So we have rejected that work. At his own expense, he will come back and fix it. You can't make this stuff up. How we got from 2.5-inch threaded pipe to 3-inch fastened with mega press, whatever. It's what he had on the truck, so rather than do it right, he just did it and thought we wouldn't notice. It's like, there's actually kind of a really big difference how much propane is used to fill a 3-inch pipe versus a 2.5-inch pipe. It's one of the mathematical dynamics of circles. You can't do that.
Thank you for whoever was on the job, and yes,
I will credit Selectman Fitzpatrick with catching that one.
well, good, thank
And he
you.
didn't catch it right away. He caught it when he looked at the ends, because they were supposed to terminate at a T with a cap on one end and a nipple for the gas on the other, and they didn't install the T, so it was immediately obvious that something wasn't right. So they're their own worst enemy. The roof itself, really great job.
Good,
They were a very professional group
Good.
that did this. So.
good. Hopefully it'll last a long time.
It's going to have to,
Yes,
because we're putting a brand-new fire alarm under it.
yes.
Just a word of warning, I'm moving along their agenda, Madam Chair,
No.
do you mind?
Municipal, municipal fire alarm, go ahead. We're still on hold, right?
We're on hold. I'm just going to put everybody on notice so that nobody said I snuck this in or anybody snuck.
Sure. I got it.
Fire alarms are expensive. And this building is complicated because we tie in to the police department's fire alarm in the basement, and they monitor this building 24/7 from the dispatch panel. So there's a little bit more going on here than first alert, CO detectors that we change batteries in when we change the clocks. This is be a fairly sophisticated system. We have some voids up, so there's a crawl space above the ceiling of the second floor. All of that has to be properly dealt with, and it has to be built in such a way that it will interact with a sprinkler system because we have to sprinkler this building if we want to occupy the second floor. So
Question, Matt,
we will be back to town meeting for a pretty substantial increase to that line item
but,
at the appropriate time.
okay.
Not right, not right.
Yep. All right. Fire station upgrade, how are we doing on that?
Drum roll.
Yeah.
If we want to do a drum roll, so the last time I saw you guys, the engineer had come back and told me, dropped a bomb on my lap and said it was going to be $1 million to
No.
do the work. If it was either FinCom or Select Board or you guys, I forget what I told. Anyway, McRitchie had come back and said, it was just they were calling me to complain that Weston and Sampson wasn't answering their emails fast enough. And then we got into the topic of why it took McRitchie 3 years to do this
Oh, yeah.
project. And one of the younger engineers, who probably is in a lot of trouble, because loose lips sink ships, he goes, oh yeah, this is going to be $1 million. I said, well, no, it's not, because we only set aside 300,000. So in the intervening time, in this ridiculous length of time it has taken them to do this design, some prices have changed. And admittedly, the town presented a bit of a moving target because we were trying to find the most cost-effective solution to addressing the air quality issues inside the building. And for the long term, it's to build a small addition on one side of the building, which is basically just sleeping quarters and lockers and nothing else.
Yeah.
That is the long-term solution. And by long-term, I'm not saying 20 years from now, within the next 5 years, we'll be before this committee to do design and build on that. But in order to get rid of the trailers and move the firefighters back into the building, we can work with the HVAC within the existing building envelope and some of the space they don't use efficiently now to be reprogrammed for temporary, for a couple of years. It will meet code and it will address the air quality issue. All of that conversation, the programming of each room for HVAC purposes changed, If people are going to sleep there, it's one thing. If we're going to store widgets in there, there's a different thing. So long story short, we asked McRitchie to revisit the budget and that we would ask town meeting for any funds above and beyond what we needed. So shooting from the hip, the young engineer had said $1 million. Bruce, being the more experienced engineer, added his own soft costs and came to a final project cost of $810,000, from which he eliminated in its entirety the fuel system that we had originally thought what we wanted on the building. So we're going to have an oil tank large enough for the generator where we would be fueling the fire engines from, and other fire equipment that run on diesel, from our own tank. So we would have a dispensing system and a whole bunch of other things. Operationally, it makes sense. I think from the very first select board meeting after I was hired, I started talking about this. I'm going to talk about it until the end of time, is that I can work the fuel market and the delivery schedule in a way that saves the town a lot of money. So when we buy wholesale in bulk as a tax exempt entity, we can save a lot of money. So in many instances, our equipment fuels up and pays retail. And we've gotten away from paying the state taxes. The federal taxes are a little bit more difficult to manage. Or maybe it's the other way around. But one category of taxes we don't pay, but we're still paying too much. The long story short, it was $190,000 for that. And then Bruce designed a sprinkler system for the building because if we do any addition at all to the building, we'll trigger the requirement for a sprinkler. There was foresight used when this building was constructed, so a separate fire service water line was run into this building and is stubbed inside. So it is ready for risers and sprinkler heads from that perspective. But because it's expensive, what Bruce has said is, we'll just do this as an ad alternate. If the bids come in lower than we anticipate, then you might be able to do it, but it's not part of your necessary work for electricity and for the HVAC. So we got the project cost down to a little over $500,000. We still have 300 some odd thousand dollars worth of ARPA funds. We will ask town meeting for I think the remainder. There's so many numbers in my head. I think the remainder is like 233,000 and change. The good news here is that the plans are done. They're ready to be put out to bid. So if town meeting votes the money, we will go out to bid the very next day and obligate those ARPA funds on schedule.
Which
It's a
have to be
long-winded
done.
explanation, but just to remind everybody, because I had to remind the select board last night, this building was struck by lightning. Don't forget about
Yes.
what the weaknesses that were revealed when it got struck by lightning. There were a lot of,
Yeah.
it was a basic building. So when it got hit by lightning, it just pretty much whacked it pretty hard. We will have a full building generator that will run all of the power needs of the building in case the grid goes down. That's big. We'll actually have a transfer switch. That's kind of cool. And other safeguards, so when we switch to generator power, it'll be a smooth transition. Significant upgrades to the electrical panels in the building so that we can actually have receptacles in every room that are sufficient for the use of the room. We won't have heavy draws all on the same circuit, and separate the circuits and just rationalize the electricity in the building. That alone is $300,000 worth of work. The remainder will be air handlers. I still think this is the best way to proceed for the town. Is air handlers draw a lot of power, so building them into the electrical project means that the electricity is being set up properly to handle the new air handlers, so I think it was the right thing to do. So that's why we're going to recommend it to town meeting for funding. So whatever's not covered by ARPA would be another transfer from free cash.
And the ARPA has to be, or at least the drawings, is it, by the end of the year?
Contract.
Contract,
Work doesn't have to begin, but we have to obligate the
a
funds.
contract, yep, okay. Questions? Anybody?
A lot of thought went into that.
Yep.
So I do have a kind of confused, the 850,000 that you're saying you think it's going to be for, what's that going to be for?
810,000?
Oh, 810,000?
Oh, that was the highway bond.
No.
No.
Is this for the,
That's their starting point.
for the air, but does that include any electrical that we have to do for it?
No, I'll go back over it.
Okay.
810 is if we did everything we ever talked about,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not what,
including like a fuel dispensing system, sprinklers, all of it.
Oh, okay,
would be
and
810.
electrical? Okay.
And the electric.
Oh, okay.
What we took out was a fuel dispensing system for 190, and the sprinklers were 70 and change.
Okay. But we-
And we're going to, there's a little bit of a net change there, because we're going to change the tank that we're going to use. If we're not going to have a large tank for dispensing fuel, we go with a smaller tank, but we still have to build the tank into the project. So the project's 500 and change.
Yeah.
You've got just about 306 from ARPA, the remainder will come from.
Okay. Now, but could I ask another question? On that fuel dispensing system, you said you're going to go with a smaller tank. I mean, how much do we save for that? Because, a larger tank, and I'm only going to say, during the blizzard of 78,
We're not going to do the dispensing system at all. So now the tank will be sized for the generator
okay,
and the boiler and not,
and that's it?
no dispensing.
Okay. Because we don't have any storage of fuel in town, really, do we?
No, that's my,
Because during the blizzard of 78, we happened to get a 10,000-gallon drop just before the blizzard hit. We were fortunate because for a month, we were plowing out every place, and we had fuel. So it's, not a bad idea to be able to have a place where you can get fuel in case of big emergency.
So if you're a real political junkie,
Yeah,
you can dig through the archives
Yeah.
in the state of Rhode Island.
yeah,
And I was on the governor's staff, and I'm quizzing the director of RIPTA over his fuel management program.
right,
And he was mad at me
yeah,
because he would only top off.
right,
He wasn't managing his purchase so that he was topped off at the low price.
yeah,
I love doing this stuff, and I have no opportunity to do it because we don't have any tanks big enough to
Right.
get a trailer load,
right.
and it's unfortunate, but I think if we have that conversation, we'll have it in the context of the highway barn.
Okay.
And not the fire station.
Okay, sounds good, but I think we should think about that.
Because in modern times, right, so we're in the aquifer protection zone over there, so
Yeah,
you do have to be careful about how you set up.
yeah,
Ironically, I was just privy to reviewing some of the Providence Journal regarding the blizzard. Interesting. Of course, I was working, not in Providence, but in Connecticut at the time, and that was interesting, too.
I don't want to waste people's time with a really long story. Someday you can, when I retire, you can buy me a beer and I'll tell you the whole story. But the legend of the Mazurkowskis, family that I grew up working on their farm,
Yeah.
included, they were destitute, they were really
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
way out. And
Gotcha.
they went to Condon's Equipment on the day of the blizzard and passed a hot check for a front-end loader, a big international front-end loader.
Wow.
Drove it back. So drove it off the lot
Yeah,
and
yeah.
started plowing snow immediately, all the way back to Cumberland.
wow,
And by the time the blizzard, the banks reopened, they had earned enough money to cover the check. It's a very cool story. There's a lot more, there's a lot more color than that, but it's late. So.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks for the input. Town.
That's how you do stuff.
When is the town meeting going to be?
November 18th.
Do we have a meeting?
So we had to avoid the election and Veterans Day.
Yeah.
So that we are late this year.
And our next meeting, oh, okay. When is our next meeting? December,
18th,
No.
says here.
November.
November 20th.
November 20th,
I'm sorry.
Happy Turkey Day.
Yeah, so anything
Is
that,
that the day before Thanksgiving?
No, it's a week, isn't Thanksgiving a week later?
Thanksgiving's late this year?
Yeah.
27th?
20, yeah.
28th?
It's usually the 27th, 28th. Are there anything on this
Cranberry.
agenda that we are responsible for recommending to the Board of Selectmen? And we haven't finished.
Nothing yet.
I mean, you're asking for approval for the purchase of the land anyhow, that, yeah, we're okay then.
ARPA funding?
No, we need to talk about vacant, any other vacant buildings in town. We've talked about the old elementary school.
How about that brown X building? Is that ever going to be torn down?
It has to come before capital, and where's the
Yeah.
money coming from?
And is that a high priority?
Yes and no.
I think, Carol, you had mentioned.
One of the reasons that I say that is because it's getting harder and harder to find a place to dispose of these things, and the
Yep.
prices are going through the roof.
Yep.
They're closing down the places where they can be brought to. So, I mean, maybe we gotta, get it on the thing before the price doubles. That's all I'm saying.
And you're on the finance committee too, so.
Right, but I don't know if the finance committee comes up with things that they want to spend money on. I think people tell
No,
us.
I'm just,
Yeah, okay.
no, I'm not saying
Oh, okay, yeah.
if it does come before you.
I would
But
be
again,
definitely in favor of it, and I would give my voice to it as well. Sometimes what they say, stitch in time saves 9, or something like that.
again, it's with so many other things.
I know.
Where
Yeah.
are we?
That's exactly it.
Has anything been done to that as far as asbestos and
Which one?
that old house that's next to the cemetery?
Oh, no,
What? No.
I think for the spring town meeting capital process, we've just got to push that to the forefront to take it down. It has exterior shingles with asbestos.
Okay.
There's also asbestos inside
Yeah.
the linoleum floor.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know,
probably if anybody put up paneling, then they say, oh, there was asbestos in the glue.
Yeah. So that's where we are with that.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments, questions on it? On other vacant buildings? And then we have the library, Board of Trustees. They are, I believe, you recommended that they search for ways to do their progress reports and so forth. And at first, it was within our doctor group.
house doctor,
Yeah,
to be blunt, I don't think Weston and Sampson's a good fit for the library. Now that we've put them through their paces, I think the library needs to find somebody else.
so have you
At the
been in
scale of the-
discussion with them?
Yes and no. I mean, in the routine course of business, we see each other quite a bit.
Anybody?
Should we still keep this on our agenda then? It could be
Yeah,
a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, and the ARPA funding, you've brought to our attention, there will be some use for that in the fire station? You'll be
so that'll
using
be
some?
that's an offset to the fire station.
Yep,
That means there are 2 remaining projects with ARPA funding pending, actually 3. The select board allocated 100 and some odd thousand, I think it's 175,000, but the balance is 159 for architectural services related to the highway bond. So technically, we have that under contract. It's just,
yep,
in the back of your mind, there's a funding source there that's not town meeting. The other project, if you saw the select board meeting last night, we had a certain amount of catch-up to do on this water line installation on Depot, which is only going to be partially funded by ARPA. We had allocated about $1.39 or so million for that project. Now, it's October, right? So we're concerned about getting to the December deadline. Roadway projects and infrastructure projects are called horizontal construction. They are governed by a different procurement statute. It's Chapter 30, Section 39M. And we are allowed to separate the purchase of supplies, building supplies, from the labor piece under that statute. So we have already purchased the pipe, the catch basins, the grates, everything, using the ARPA money.
for Depot.
For Depot Street. So we've signed a contract for $505,000 worth of stuff, just to get that part of the ARPA funding done and get it out of the way. The remainder will be part of the stack that will be used to fund the actual construction. That is already out to bid, pending town meeting approval. We won't be able to sign a contract unless town meeting approves the total project cost. And the funding sources there will probably involve a transfer from the retained earnings of the water sewer department, as well as a transfer from free cash. Now, the conversation last night was about sidewalks. Depot Street has sidewalks on both sides, and you also have sidewalks on one side of Pleasant Street. That will be partially impacted because the way the water connection is made will be into Pleasant Street a little bit, not all the way down to Main, but around the corner of the triangle of the church property. There's valves there that connect to it. Many have taken the position that if we're going to do the road, we should do the sidewalks at the same time. Because on one side of the road, when you drive out of here, you'll notice, on one side of Depot Street, we have granite curbs. On the other side, we have concrete curbs poured in place that have deteriorated somewhat more than the granite has. The reveal is different, just the way the road got poured the last time it was done. So since we're going to pave curb to curb, the notion is we should install granite where the concrete is, set the granite properly, pave up to it, and then pour new sidewalks on the other side. That's a $350,000 add to that project. I'm kind of torn about it. There are panels of sidewalk on Depot that are not passable for someone in a wheelchair or any other device. And for that reason, they need to be fixed. But there are many, many panels on Depot Street, sidewalk panels that are in perfectly good condition. And
I've got
kind of a shame.
comment on that. I know one lady who used to walk in the road
Yeah,
so she wouldn't trip.
yeah.
And
So we
I was
have,
like, why are you walking in the road?
Yeah.
Look at these sidewalks. So,
you know, it's, some of the worst areas are right in front of Town Hall.
yeah.
So that's part of it. We're going to probably bust through those anyway to bring the water line into the building, which is part of that project. But so that's ARPA. And then the last piece of ARPA, if there's no questions about that project. So again, setting expectations. We will probably begin that project in March. All the infrastructure will be installed, trench patch will be poured and compacted, and the trench will be allowed to cure for a full year before we reclaim the road, or at least one winter over. So if we finish in August of next year laying the pipe, then we would be looking to pave the following spring or summer, fully paved, curb to curb. It's a bit of a waiting game, but it is the right way to do it, so that that trench doesn't settle underneath brand-new pavement. The last ARPA project is the school security system, the gift that keeps on giving. God bless you guys in the industry. We started off with $225,000 of ARPA funds. That wasn't enough. We went to town meeting, and the school said, it was actually the capital committee, reprogrammed $140,000 from an oil tank that they decided they weren't going to install to their security camera project, and that was done in May. So that brought your project total up to about $365. There was some soft costs in that, but let's not get there right now. $365. The bids came in after that. The bids were opened in June, and the lowest bid was $489. So we always knew to do all 4 schools, we would have to ask town meeting for the overage. What has happened since is we brought in some design help because we needed it, and it was $38,000 worth of design. But, much to my chagrin anyway, dealing with technology people can try one's patience. They went back into their own design, and when they actually opened things up and saw they were going to install cameras to an existing location, the cabling was all coaxial. How they did not spot the encoders while they were in all the closets looking at this stuff, I don't know. I guess they weren't looking for the encoder for that. So long story short, all of those locations have to be recabled with modern network cable. That isn't that expensive because there's an existing conduit. That's not the issue for expense. The expense is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not going to say it perfectly right, I'm sure, but all those coaxial cameras, like in the high school, there's like 22 of them, go to one encoder. And as far as Milestone was concerned, Milestone is a software package that runs the security program. That was one license. Now, switching over to 22 new digital cameras, it's going to be 22 licenses.
Oy.
So it's a wee bit more expensive.
By manufacturer, so it's who you chose.
Yeah,
So there's ways around it, there's tons of,
we're out the door.
yeah.
So we're going to be asking town meeting for additional funds. So the overage plus this was last night. I'm trying to remember where we came out to. It's a chunk of change, and there's nothing we can do about it, in my view. The system we will have when we are done will be fully modern, so the part of the problem here is that the security in all of our school buildings was gradually built over the course of many years in different types of technologies. So we're replacing all of that with a singular system. It's just a bigger project. It's not plug and play. You're not replacing a modern system with another modern system just to upgrade your cameras or upgrade your switches. So that's where we're at. That's going to be in I believe that's going to be either Article 2 or Article 4. I think it's Article 4. So that's, I think the lesson learned here is that because of the ARPA funds, we were trying to hurry.
Yeah,
I think the lesson learned here is we should have done a full exploratory, and not we, the designer that we hired
yeah.
should have done a more complete explore on what was installed already. And before they said replace existing camera, they should have gone and looked at the camera's connections. I don't think that would have been a crazy thought, but water under the bridge.
So what is the amount going to be asked for?
Don't have my warrant with me, so I don't want to misquote it.
Yep.
I think it's 304.
Out of free cash?
304,000 out of free cash. So we certified free cash. This will be the last note that I intend to make at this meeting. Our free cash certification this year was the second highest in the history of the town,
Yeah.
and only about $20,000 less than the highest, which was last year. So we certified with $3.7 million of free cash.
3.7 certified.
A fair amount. Those are all one-time, I don't want to say totally unexpected, but one-time events that generated all that money. So a lot of it was return on investments, because the ARPA money we left in our account, and we were allowed to invest that, so we got pretty good interest return on that for the year and a half, 2 years that we held on to it. But there were other one-time events that occurred, and then we had a pretty substantial turnback. So the administration turned back $800,000 out of that. So that's a pretty good turnback from town. So
Questions?
if you add it all up like I did last night, just the items that are on the fall warrant, assuming that they spend out the entire budget, would be like 1.85 million, so just about half of what we were certified. So the capital budget might be lean this year, but it won't be non-existent. It'll just be a little leaner.
And I'm sorry, what did you say the turnback was?
A little over 800,000.
Thank you. All right, questions, anybody? All right, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Very informative.
I will excuse myself.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time.
Hope you enjoyed the movie. Did you get your cameo?
She's seen it. Carol
I
is in
have
it, too.
seen it, yeah.
I think you were in control of that scene. I think you had Ellie on the retreat. She's kind of going like this.
No. I don't know if Ellie even knew. I suspected. That's, yeah, fine, go ahead.
There are lots of little ironies in there that, we have Carol paying her taxes.
You notice there's no smile on my
That we
face?
weren't smiling.
A true taxpayer.
All right, thank you, folks. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Minutes. We have minutes to approve.
I have one correction, or maybe not, number for the September 18th. Number 3, it says, about the ARPA funding, it mentions that we were discussing something, and the second floor of the Municipal Center and what that is being used for, and they are doing the water project. It doesn't mention who they are. Should we, I don't know if that's a quoted sentence, the word "they," should it be the town is doing this water project, or the
Good question.
Municipal Center,
And I
or
don't- I
the
don't-
water sewer treatment plant?
I
Because
don't
if
bel-
anybody were to read it and didn't watch the meeting,
And I
they're going to
don't
think that
believe-
we're in charge of this project, and we're not at all.
No, and I don't believe Matt Wojcik
Well, there has to be something,
at the meeting.
no.
So, Matt Benoit, do you have any input to this question?
But who the, if you want to leave it
Who's
as
the they?
is,
Yeah,
who's the they?
Right in there.
But if
We
we
can-
didn't
we
say
can,
who the "they" was at the meeting, well, then we can't put it in here.
No.
And what is being used for, and they are doing this water project.
I think
So-
that's part of the municipal fire alarm, I think, or the municipal main roof replacement, put the fires to the sprinkler systems upstairs, but it doesn't specify.
Yeah, it's a committee briefly talked about the Depot Street water project, so briefly wasn't, it wasn't like what we got at this meeting,
But
because
the way
Matt wasn't there.
It says it's,
So-
we're in charge of this
Yeah,
water
I hear you,
project.
I hear you.
So they,
They would be
Second.
Stantec, I guess, is doing the Depot Street water project.
but the way it says, they are doing this because, but Stantec isn't doing it.
So my
The town is.
So my suggestion
Yeah.
is that we have this checked, and we can approve these at the next
Oh,
meeting.
so review
So Matt
the-
Benoit, would you look into this, please?
Yep.
Maybe the word was they,
Yeah,
just not
okay.
sure. But we will hold off on
Good
these.
catch. Next meeting, November 20th, 2024, and then again in December 18th, 2024. If there are any topics not anticipated,
Do you want to accept the minutes?
no.
No, next
We're
one.
gonna
is it? Yeah.
hold because we need to find out in
So,
detail.
I-
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, anybody? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
At 8:23?
At what time?
8:23, okay?
11:23.
11.
Jeez, 8:23.
I'm like 11:23.
It's actually 11:26.
26. Ray made the motion. Who second?
Second.
Bob Wormy. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the beautiful day.
Thank you.
You